Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Various and Numerous podcast, a Briar.io production. Special thanks to our sponsors, as always, Thunder Games. Thunder Games creates games that integrate Bitcoin and process payments via the Lightning Network and run their own node. If you wish to connect, their public key is available over at Thunder, THNDR.games/. You can also check out their social media over there, and a link to their Telegram is provided. Thunder Games are making mobile games which enable players to win Bitcoin for free while using the Lightning Network to send prizes. I love to see what Thunder Games is up to and the advocacy of Bitcoin and the Lightning Network. So check them out, thundergames.com or thunder.games. The Bob Shop. The Bob Shop is the most diverse blockchain and crypto clothing store that I've come across on the web. They have it all: privacy coins, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Bexy Exchange, Mimblewimble, hoodies, hats, shoes, tees. It's all over at bobcrypto.co. Zen Sports is a peer-to-peer decentralized application built on the Icon blockchain that enables players to set their own games, lines, and more using blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. Players can get in and out of games with fiat or crypto and enjoy gambling from the comfort of their own homes with smaller fees than centralized bookmakers and casinos. Visit zensports.com and check them out. Make sure to gamble responsibly as always, and ensure gambling is legal in your jurisdiction. Lucio Paletti is a digital artist and self-described propagandist known for his iconic Bitcoin artworks. Lucio's number one goal is to spread the message that Bitcoin is better money. Check out luciopaletti.com. That's LucioPoletti.com. And he is the artist that created that beautiful Andy Warhol on the wall. Flashcoin. Flashcoin is a reinvention of Litecoin, built to scale for worldwide commerce and fast enough to handle everyday transactions. The flexible and easy to integrate core code allows exchanges and wallets to add Flash to their platform within hours. With settlement time of around 5 seconds and consensus within 2 minutes, anyone, anywhere can use Flash Mobile Wallet as easily as cash or credit card. Visit flashcoin.io and check out their map on there that allows you to see merchants around the world and providing, goods and services like the free market was intended, peer-to-peer, voluntarily. And remember, nothing written or spoken on Briar.io should be interpreted as financial or investment advice. Always do your own research. You are the captain of your own ship. You are in control of your financial sovereignty. And please enjoy this episode with Gold, Silver, Bitcoin.com's Justin O'Connell. Here we go again, episode number 31 of the Various and Numerous podcast. I'm your host, R.L. Breyer. Today's guest of Gold, Silver, Bitcoin.com, Justin O'Connell. I had him on my podcast a few months ago. I don't remember the exact date. I meant to look that up before we got on here. But before the world really completely fell apart over the last few months, I think. So good to see you again, sir. How was your holiday season, or how is it going?
Actually, this is one of the most Christmassy Christmases I've had in quite a while. I moved from San Diego, California, where on Christmas Day it's usually around 70 degrees, to Idaho. And it's been snowing, so I had a white Christmas and a lot of Christmas cheer in this part of the world.
Absolutely. I love to hear that. Real quick, do you want to talk about why you decided to, I guess I would call it, flee California?
Yeah, on March 14th, Governor Gavin Newsom decided to lock down the state. And while a lot of people were naive enough to think that the government actually cared about their well-being or to stopping the spread of a disease, I knew exactly what was happening. They were stopping the spread of freedom. I woke up on March 15th and the parks had caution tape around them. And having studied history, I was reminded of a lot of the texts that I read during 1930s Stalinist Russia. And I think they told us there would be just 2 weeks to stop the spread. And here we are 9 months later, and California is still locked down. They're turning to these failed lockdown measures to stop the spread and ruling by pseudoscience. And we've seen a lot of our peers kind of fall into this pseudoscientific world as well. They adhere to a ideology, of dangerous ideology known as flat curveism, where they think that by staying 6 feet apart from their peers, they can slow the spread of a disease, although there's never been a scientific study that has suggested as much, let alone a controlled double-blind study, as well as what I think is referred to by some as a masquerade. Never before has there been a study of masks used to slow the spread of disease amongst the general population ever, let alone the multiple studies that would be needed to determine the efficacy of such a strategy. In Idaho, it's much different. I was pleased to find.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, the people do care about one another's health, etc. There's much more emphasis on personal freedom and responsibility. And I don't think that Idaho is paying an exorbitant price for this strategy. Now, I see a lot of fear mongering still here. There's some mayors here, particularly in Sandpoint, Idaho,
Mm-hmm.
who the mayor writes in the local paper that the local hospital is at 60 or 70% of capacity. Yet they've only got about 10 beds set aside for COVID patients. So they've got 6 COVID patients, and they're telling the people that they're at 60% capacity and that the situation's growing worse.
Right.
So I think what we've seen here in 2020 is the rise of pseudoscience. And unfortunately, a lot of our peers have exposed themselves as being ignorant of the scientific method first and foremost, and also allergic to scientific debate, inquiry, and that's why we've seen this push for censorship. If you are not concerned about the censorship that you've seen online and social media, or if you just think that some fringe groups are being censored, you are both ignorant of the present and ignorant of history, as well as the nature of governance.
So, do you think this is sort of like the culmination of many years, decades of sort of state public, public education, indoctrination, school? The whole idea, that they have to lead, as Murray Rothbard said, the young charges have to be, taught by the state to take grasp of their minds early on. And now we see these people that can't even, do basic reasoning about certain things, like you just mentioned. Do you think this has all been like a plan in the making for a long time, or do you just think this is like Americans in other areas of the world, but specifically us, because it seems like we've given up so many freedoms in the last 20 years? You think it's like it's natural that we've become complacent because we've had such a good run, or do you think this is just they're really pushing it forth now?
Yeah, I think the real science is guarded by the commanding heights of various sectors in society, and that they've realized through scientific inquiry that the best way in order to teach people or inculcate people into a specific cult or to create a specific culture, that you could do it slowly but surely. So here we are in 2020, and most of our peers don't even know it, but they've been quietly indoctrinated through not so much public school as much as, I think, movies, television, the radio,
Right.
and in fact, the media on the internet, into Marxism and socialism. And the irony here is they think that these are new philosophies. I wouldn't even call them philosophies, they're ideologies. A philosophy is a moving, evolving discussion, and an ideology is a state that can't be moved, which I think is what we see a lot of our peers exhibiting. And the irony is that they think this is new. They think that they're on the cutting edge of thought. They think that postmodernism is expanding our understanding of logic, when really all it's doing is turning logic and reason on its head and abandoning the traditions of Western civilization dating back to the Greeks, and also as I think, solidified in our founding documents in the United States, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, which really just come from a Western, uh, the history of Western civilization. So
I'm thinking,
to answer your question directly, yeah, this has been a slow march towards this state
Mhm.
on purpose in order to make 2020 possible.
That's what Horace Mann said about education and the state education. I was speaking more to like thinking about like the fact that they can tell people now that there's gender is a construct. These sort of ideas, like if you're willing to accept things like that, you know, then there's no bounds to the ridiculousness that you will accept, right?
I think we're seeing that
Yeah,
today.
yeah.
And unfortunately, I think that I personally am done being nice to people
I just
who,
told a family member that the other day. We have to put these people on an island and completely separate ourselves from them. I believe that. Is that what you're alluding to?
yeah, their ideas are
Yeah.
not interesting. They're not compelling.
They're
They're
dangerous.
not sound.
Yeah.
They are nonsense, quite frankly. And they're espoused by people who have no foundation in, from my view, particularly history, especially history of the 20th century. So it's over. Like, if, and I say this, whether it's a politician or another, if they don't have a sound basis and understanding of liberty and freedom, then they're not worth listening to. The rest of their ideas are irrelevant and are not grounded in the true experience of man.
100% agree with you. That was very well said. So let's get into like what the government's doing on a lot of it. I mean, they've shut businesses down. They're robbing people of the most basic rights, to earn a living and provide for their people's family, well-being, putting food on the table, keeping the lights on, things like that. And then it's like the straight up, like Judge Napolitano says, mafia model, where now you're begging them for like it's worse than the mafia. You're begging them for $600, or these people can barely get by because they literally shut your business down. So what do you think, like, their end game is it just because that, like, they know they can print this money and get it first, that they don't really even care about like American production anymore? They have the Chinese to produce all the things they need, or what do you think their end game is with all this?
Okay, so with shutting down small businesses, it's so that they can put your landlord in a situation where they have to sell their property, and the big corporations on the planet, many of which are open and remained open throughout 2020,
Doing better than ever.
can buy it up for cheap. They didn't lock down the small business down the road to keep you safe. And if you think that's the case, you are woefully ignorant, out to lunch, and irrelevant when it comes to the discussion that needs to be had today and now. When it comes to the end game, look, it's a monopoly game. So you're talking about $600 or $2,000. That's a distraction. I don't call these stimulus checks. I call these tranquilizer checks. They're meant to put you down for a short time so that you stay out of the way. And the reason why they will give you cash at this point, the reason why we're hearing UBI move into the mainstream, universal basic income, is because the world has been sufficiently monopolized to where they don't care if they give you a little bit of paper. They want to move you into an energy resource-based economy because they control all of the energy and all of the resources. So they will give you paper because paper is a relic of an old world.
Right. Yeah. It's an illusion. They're giving out illusions. It's interesting. They're setting you up with an illusion. Yeah. So I'm interested in that. And then what do you think about, like, I mean, isn't it so fitting that we see like people like Dave Portnoy and these free market guys coming in and saving the day?
I think that is okay. So people think we live in a capitalist society.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone our age, in fact, anyone that our grandparents and our parents never lived in a capitalist economy.
Right.
Best case scenario, they lived in a mixed economy. So we criticize capitalism, Yet the vast majority of people couldn't define capitalism if their life depended on it.
Absolutely. Or money.
Or money. And so they don't understand. They're also very cynical. I find it's very interesting. The most nihilistic among us are the most pro lockdown, which I think is cognitive dissonance. Oh, there's no hope. Man is bad. And yet they're leaping in to action in 2020, virtue signaling that they're the ones looking to save people and care about lives. So I think that it doesn't surprise me at all that we see Guy Fieri, right? David Portnoy organizing funds for small businesses. I think that outside of the city, that's kind of how life is led.
Right.
So in California and San Diego, everyone thinks that the people up here in Idaho are just ignorant hicks or whatever, in cities all across the world, right? Flyover country America, they're all just ignorant hicks. Actually, they practice community and loving their neighbor far better than the people in the cities in California. And the people in cities in California are removed from the land. They're removed from each other. They're removed from reality. And that's why they're masquerading around thinking that 6 feet is some scientific fact,
Right.
and that masks will limit the spread. And maybe these things would and do, but I'm just saying that there's no scientific studies that suggest that's true.
I don't disagree with you. I haven't read them all, but it's a lot of this stuff is basic common sense too. I mean, everybody's been wearing masks now, like you said, for a long time, and it's still spreading or whatever. And the data, you can make data, like you mentioned earlier. You can change. Talking about the beds and stuff, you can make data sound one way without really people. Headline looks one way, and then you actually read the article, or if there's actually, everything's slanted today from mainstream, so you have to really dig and look at multiple sources. And I think that's one thing that like the boomers and a lot of left wingers just don't really even care to do, is like at least look at like multiple places for information.
It's becoming increasingly difficult too to look at multiple places. When I began Googling on a daily basis, for better or worse, 15 years ago, it was quite easy for me to find the information that helped me build a complete picture around a topic, subject, or idea. However, today it's become much more difficult through Google to do so. And social media is the same story. So now we have to dig even deeper than we've had to in the past in order to gather enough information on a specific topic in order to even begin to have an idea of what's truly going on. So we have other alternatives like DuckDuckGo, for instance, that we can turn to. But when we look at software and users' interaction with software, if they have to do one additional step to complete a task, maybe we talked about this before, the drop off is significant. And so people now all of a sudden need to go past Google and open up a second browser like DuckDuckGo. They're less likely to get to the bottom of an idea, which is
absolutely, because even getting to DuckDuckGo takes some sort of additional effort. Is basically what you're saying. Even finding it or knowing somebody who's found it, another person, like there's still a lot of people who don't even know what DuckDuckGo is to begin with. Yeah.
Well, they better learn. If they have any interest in knowledge, they better learn what DuckDuckGo is. In fact, I tweeted the other day that physical books are undervalued, and they really are. You can buy historical books, and I don't mean like history books. I mean foundational texts for like $1 on the internet.
Yeah, I know. I saw that tweet. I appreciated that tweet.
So I think we need to increasingly step away from our digital illusion and start really reading books, going out in our neighborhood, talking to our neighbors. I'm from California, and people are walking up on my porch, shoveling the snow for me because the people up here look out for each other. And I'm like, what the heck? Being from California, I'm like looking out the window wondering if someone's like trying to break into the house. No, they're shoveling the snow. because the people in flyover country in the United States who are closer to the land love their neighbor more than the people in San Francisco do, more than the people in Los Angeles do.
That is why they want people in the cities too. It is more of a me sort of culture. I totally agree with you. People outside of the cities are much more like you said. It's more like a family. It's a community. It's different. It's not that
And we're
overpopulated. Everybody lives like this, and you're so close to people you don't want to really even see other people.
the look in the eyes of the people in California in the cities tell a very grim story.
They probably look pretty defeated. I would have to guess.
Defeated, exhausted,
Mhm.
beat down.
So what do
There's
you
a
think? What do you think about places like? What do you think about these communists? Let's just call it what it is. These communist cities, or in states like California and New York State and New York City and Detroit. What do you? I mean, are these places just gonna? I mean, are they? Is there any way to separate ourselves from them? Basically, is what I'm trying to say because I know you and I have a lot of the same anarcho-capitalist beliefs and stuff. What do you think about like? How do we, other than Bitcoin and metals and stuff, is there any way to like, do you ever foresee Texas or Idaho or do you think there is going to be a secession movement?
we're going to see some world history unfold, and it's going to have an effect on the future of mankind.
I agree.
And you and I are young. We very well might have front row seats to this thing. I'm getting to the point where, of the friends I know growing up,
Mm-hmm.
if they don't know what's going on, if they don't seem upright or strong enough to want to know what's going on, I'm done with them. They're irrelevant. They're betas. So move on from them and find strong people who are like-minded, who have that burning desire in their gut to protect civilization instead of virtue signal while you promote ideas and actions that burn the thing down.
Yeah, that's
Because what's going to be rebuilt in place of Western civilization is not going to benefit anyone. And if you think the riots in the streets in the US over the summer had anything to do with equality, you are a fool.
so Otis. It's like you mentioned earlier. It's divide and conquer. I think you mentioned that earlier. Divide and conquer. It's one of the oldest tactics in the playbook, and it's funny. Like I think we talked about this before too about how like I think so much of this has to do with like schooling and it has to do with the media and stuff. But like the fact that not we, but past generations have they just let the Weather Underground and these groups like these communist groups blow up government buildings and stuff, and then they went straight into academia. It's like I mean that it's crazy. It's crazy to me that this happened in America in the last 50 years, and then colliding with it is obviously the dollar, which is like in a complete downward trajectory right now. What do you think? What do you think the end game is with the dollar? Are they gonna? Is there gonna be some sort of? Do you actually think there will be a world currency initiative like with this Great Reset? There really seems like they're really trying to push something like that forward.
Okay, so first things first, like you mentioned, domestic terrorism or terrorism. And what we saw in the streets in the US of the burning down of businesses, this
Mm-hmm.
was not about equality, people.
Right.
This was about locking down small businesses, disrupting the cities so that the ultra rich, that's a euphemism, I should call them something else, but the ultra rich can buy up the property on the cheap. It's a real estate play. And the people on the streets this summer were just bags of meat in the eyes of these people to bring down the property values so that it can be bought up. Black Lives Matter is a real estate play. It's not an equality play. Now, so when it comes to the future of money, I see it much more along the lines of that movie with Justin Timberlake called In Time. Have you ever seen that movie?
I don't think I've seen it.
All right, so basically, like everyone's got an allotted amount of time, and it ticks down on your arm,
Oh wow.
and so if you run out of time, you just die. That's pretty
Right.
much it. So Microsoft filed for a cryptocurrency patent that's tied to human action. So I think that through an app or what have you, we will earn some sort of new digital currency, perhaps cryptocurrency, but I think that we get confused, especially in the Bitcoin and blockchain industry, the crypto industry, right? We get real confused. We're cheering on distributed ledgers parading under the guise as a blockchain when they're not blockchain. And we're cheering on technologies that just build up a panopticon around us without thinking twice about it because we just want to promote, quote, blockchain at all costs. And we don't think things through in this industry
Right.
very, very, very far these days. So this cryptocurrency action patent that Microsoft has filed for, I think, very well could be tied to an app. And so long as we do the right actions, our cryptocurrency account will be filled up, irregardless of what kind of unit of account that may be. Very clearly, like US dollar, euro, British pound, Canadian dollar. These are just brands. These are like brands or subsidiaries of a larger architecture.
Right.
So it's like US dollar, euro, Pepsi or Coke.
Okay, so what do you think, like, for the people that are already into crypto, like in Bitcoin and stuff, are they, is there going to be like, is that where we really could see separation of society? Do you think that could happen? Like where we all go, our gold and silver and Bitcoin people go to, this one remote place and we live this productive, industrious life, very peaceful amongst each other, producers and the non-producers and the people that are more parasitic, we leave them behind. Is that your idea of like what happens? Because that's kind of like how I feel it might play out these days.
I think we're going to have to really influence culture increasingly. I think we're going to have to withdraw from the public school system, withdraw from a lot of these institutions, and deal with the unfortunate repercussions that come with that. For instance, perhaps not having access to healthcare, and take it from there. I mean, it's tough to see how this plays out many steps ahead. I mean, there's a very dystopic possibility. Let's call that the Great Reset.
Mm-hmm.
And very there's a renaissance of sorts. We call that the Great Awakening. And I suppose we might end up in a third way, somewhere in the middle of these two eventualities. But when it comes to cryptocurrency, I have some grave concerns. I think that the false prophets of crypto talk profits. All they talk about is profits. I see childlike tweets from the so-called leaders of the cryptocurrency space as Bitcoin in US dollar terms reaches all-time highs. But that really does not have a lot of impact in the world,
Mm-hmm.
insofar as the technologies we use today to access the cryptocurrencies are all centralized. The space needs to not talk about price. It needs to talk about decentralizing ISPs, decentralizing the internet, decentralizing operating systems, decentralizing hardware, including chips. And until that discussion is the obsession
Mm-hmm.
of the cryptocurrency space, I think that it is very vulnerable to attack.
I agree with you. I think that that's paramount in crypto is understanding the difference between these centralized ones like Ripple and the more decentralized projects and the privacy coins and decentral, freedom promoting idea, freedom promoting blockchains and protocols and such, things that really increase freedom. That's what I'm interested in. I tweet about price a lot, but I tweet about decentralization and stuff and privacy just as much. I think it's important on Twitter to talk about price these days because that's what gets people in. And I think a lot of people do stick around, but focusing like a monomaniacal focus on just price is definitely you don't want people coming in just to speculate. You want people to understand that the idea is freedom. It's about freedom to me at least. But yeah, there's definitely people that came in and have tried to hijack the ethos or the overall idea, I think.
We celebrate billionaires entering the Bitcoin industry.
Oh, that doesn't bother me. That doesn't really bother me as much, to be honest with you. I think that's a good thing. I think it's good that these people see the value. That's really what it is to me. They just see the utility. I think it's good. I think it's good for everyone because eventually the market cap will be as big with these guys coming in as gold, and then really, you'll have that sort of stable, or maybe it won't ever be stable and it'll just go up. It'll just keep eating up fiat until it's really is the world's number one currency. We'll have to see what happens. Like you said, there's infinite variables to this, but it's interesting to think about how it will shake out.
We need to question and really think through, and I don't think the effects would be catastrophic. What happens when China cracks down on miners? Is the SEC's move against Ripple merely a test? Is it a probe to see what else is possible in the rest of the industry? Ethereum has a foundation. We might come up with like legal gymnastics regarding how the foundations are not responsible for the code or are somehow separate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting.
That could be thrown out.
Yeah,
that a precedent could be set stating no, the foundations have stewardship over the protocols and therefore they're an entity that will be held responsible. The miners can be held responsible, which is why we need to decentralize the mining, which comes back to decentralizing the production of hardware, which right now the United States is manufacturing less than its entire history, particularly because of COVID. It really had an effect on that. And therefore, we're even more dependent now on China for the production of critical hardware fueling or underpinning the cryptocurrency space. And I'm not saying that these would be death blows, let's say a crackdown in China of the miners.
right.
That would not be a death blow to the protocol. But I'm saying the space has zero concept collectively about these possibilities. And the people who entered the space later or now, the noobs, have zero concept that this is such a possibility because they don't understand the technology stack upon which Bitcoin and blockchain.
Right. The learning curve is pretty steep in crypto. It's not something you can step in and understand in even a year or two. It's like it's a real curve, to really grasp what's going on. It's going to take you a few years at least. Well, okay, so let's talk about like store. Okay, you want to finish a thought?
I think the best thing the space could do is start pricing Bitcoin in terms of silver and stop pricing it in terms of US dollars.
Well, let's talk about silver real quick. What do you think's going on with silver? Why is it so cheap? I mean, I thought it would be like $50 by this time this year.
I think the demand for precious metals, particularly silver, has been sapped by Bitcoin. And
Right.
so our generation, which would have been all in on silver at this point, went all in on Bitcoin, which has sapped a ton of demand for silver. Now, we could analyze open contracts on the COMEX and opine that the price is being manipulated. But if we just isolate supply and demand, all of the demand has gone into Bitcoin. And I think that is actually a vulnerability for people that are looking for alternatives to fiat currencies. They should be looking not only at Bitcoin, but at precious metals in general, not only at crypto, but also in precious metals. As they take some money off the table in crypto, which people do, although a lot of people say you ought to hodl your way to $1 million. I think that taking money out of Bitcoin isn't so much taking money off the table in terms of price risk. It's taking risk away from the cyber realm. Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum has warned that a cyber attack that would be more debilitating than COVID-19, which quite frankly isn't as debilitating as the response to it has been, is possible. And if such a cyber attack takes place, let's just say, low bar against AWS, how many people would then lose access to their crypto and their Bitcoin?
Right.
I think a huge percentage. So diversifying away from the digital realm into precious metals is really what this movement is all about. It should be all about. But for some reason, there's infighting between the precious metals industry.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think Peter Schiff sort of started that. I think we could have had some sort of like symbiotic thing going on with them, with the whole precious metal crypto space. But unfortunately, he started like, it's like another like old story, tribalism. It's like, dude, just let it go. Like, we're all about sound money and freedom here, freedom markets, competition. Like, let's work together. Instead, he wants to infight. What do you think about that?
I think Peter Schiff makes a lot of great points. Now, they are not all sound. I think, though, that perhaps what he's trying to articulate is what I've just articulated, is that there's a lot of risk to keeping your money in a digital setting. And that actually applies to your bank account too.
Right.
So it's not just something that's specific to crypto. Now, of course, if you're storing your money yourself on a hard wallet, you're a little bit more insulated from such issues. But still, how effective will mesh networks be if the internet disappeared tomorrow? And people laugh that that's not possible. Who would have thought 2020 was possible?
Right. Anything's possible at this point. If people don't realize that, by now, it's like anything's possible.
So I think we need to make up. We need to kiss and make up. The altcoiners, the Bitcoiners, the precious metal bugs, the gold bugs, and the silver bugs. We are actually all kind of philosophically aligned here.
Absolutely.
And, what we'll see is now that Bitcoin's rising, if it plateaus into 2021, let's say, and silver starts gaining, heading for its all-time high,
right,
we'll see a lot of the Bitcoiners kind of then turn their attention to the precious metals and start kind of championing the precious metals. But that's why we need to stop thinking about price in terms of USD.
Yeah, as I'm showing you the price, we're literally making all-time highs though, so it's hard to ignore right now. I gotta at least mention it. We're in historic territory right now, approaching $30,000. We're at $28,872, and it almost hit. It was $100 and $109 off of hitting 30K. So it's like, I think it's important to talk about price because another reason is because it's sort of like a measuring stick of like where we are, even though we got more billionaires coming in. I think it's just like it just shows more of the overall the belief in that this technology is here to stay. I think it's finally like hitting people right in the face. So I think it's interesting to look at it from that regard. And how's
the USD look year to date?
The dollar, the DXY. I haven't.
I saw an interesting quote by Naval, who's got a Twitter. He's I don't think he's fully right about this, but he said that like it's not so much Bitcoin going up, but the dollar going down. That's not entirely true, but it's certainly something that we should consider. As we celebrate all-time high in Bitcoin, pain and suffering index must be skyrocketing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, these two things are I totally agree with that. I mean, it's sad that, but it's also like, it's sad that Bitcoiners are going to experience all this great wealth and great feelings and stuff at the same time that the majority of people are about to just have like the hardest time of their life. So it's one of those things, but it's also like the people that have been here for the last 10 years, like myself, like trying to like bring people along. It's like, well, you know, a lot of us did everything we could. So it's like, I'm not going to feel guilty about it at the same time. You know what I mean?
And if somebody doesn't understand a Bitcoin, then push them into precious metals.
Oh, I
Because
mean, I think I agree with you. I'm in the camp with you that gold and silver also have their definitely have their play in my life. I mean, I want to own more gold and silver too. I think that's definitely it's definitely gonna be money forever, at least you know while I'm alive. So hopefully, you know, I don't foresee that anything changing in that regard. Um, what else are you looking at in the markets right now? What do you think? What do you think? I mean, you don't like talking about price, but I mean, are we going to hit $100,000 Bitcoin next year? Is the dollar really going to like go to like you know lows that we haven't seen in years, and then we're either just going to keep printing money? And I mean, all of these central banks are virtually printing money. You know, they're debasing against each other. So it's like sort of what you mentioned a second ago. Bitcoin really, I don't remember who said this first, but Bitcoin really has no top because fiat has no bottom. I think that's a good quote. I think that's one of the reasons that we're seeing this crazy run.
can you see this? All right. That's the US misery index. We go from like 6 to 8 at the beginning of the year
Huh?
to 16
Wow.
in April. See that spike?
Yeah, that's crazy. Went
So
parabolic.
I'm looking at 100K. I will talk about the risk of Bitcoin. I'll
Oh yeah.
talk about the lack of actual decentralization in the space. I will critique Bitcoin all day. I've been in the space since 2012. I work in it all day, every day, simply because I don't see other people criticizing it. It's basically like a feedback loop that we're all so special. We're all
Right.
going to change the world. Lucky us. Look at us. We're all getting rich. So like I try to push back on that for balance's sake. And it's easy to make a lot of enemies doing that because people assume that you don't quite understand what things are about. I do understand what things are about. And I do see 100K in our future. I think that we blow through 30K here,
Mhm.
that we'll have some potential resistance at 35 and 40 and 45, but I'm really looking at that 50K. And if we blow through 50K, then the next resistance, as far as I am concerned, is at 75K. And if we blow through that, the next resistance is at 100K. I think that is where this bull run could end, is at 100K. And then we might go down to $10,000 again.
Right. A
That's
lot of
maybe
people are screaming new paradigm, and I tweeted that out last night. I wonder if it are you in the I just posed it as a question to everyone. I wonder you know, is this the new paradigm where we don't have these fallbacks anymore, or you know 90% drawbacks? And I don't really know whether one way or not. I think I don't know if we'll have the 90% drawback, but it's just typical of markets that you know nothing goes up forever. So
I
some
mean,
point we're going to see a
and
pullback.
particularly Bitcoin.
Right.
I think the new paradigm for me will be when the US dollar is reset.
Well, how do you think what how does that work? What do you think that that looks like? I mean, is that they're not gonna pin it to gold or silver though. I
No,
mean,
I mean,
are they gonna pin it to Bitcoin?
if if the US dollar was pinned to gold, that would cause a huge contraction in the global economy, in the US economy too. I think though that that would long term promote more manufacturing here locally, which is ultimately more sound policy than just printing paper into oblivion.
Right.
The new the new paradigm shift is just who knows? I mean, there's numerous possibilities. There could be war. It could be war between U.S. and China. China's obviously becoming uh, more expansionary, more powerful. Its economy is open. They've been open for business. And if you think that's because they were able to get a disease under control because of authoritarian measures, you are anti science. There's no scientific basis for that. You're just parroting things that you've heard on the internet without thinking for yourself.
Right.
And then I looked to Mexico, and there's been currency revaluations there before, and they've gotten rid of an old currency and introduced a new one, not backed by any sort of precious metals. Something like that could happen in the United States. Um, it'll be, but also I think we could see more likely is this gradual decline in the value of the US dollar, the gradual decline in its primacy in the global economy. And that's why I don't think we're necessarily in a new paradigm for Bitcoin, because a lot of people would think you and I were crazy for having this conversation. And a lot of our world is in our minds. And so I think that as stocks reach all-time highs, as things seem, quote, normal to the general public in the stock market, as they're actually lured into a bloodletting, essentially, in the U.S. stock market, because that's all that's happening is that people are looking at their bank accounts. They're not making any interest.
Right.
They're losing purchasing power. So now they're turning to stocks. They're being lured into a casino, essentially, and the house is going to win. And the house very well might win when it's got the most to win, meaning that Main Street has the most to lose. But we're not at that point yet. So I'm not entirely convinced that we're in a new paradigm. I think we're in a marvelous bull market that we've seen happen in Bitcoin 4 or 5 times now. You know, dating back to the push from like what was it, $1 even or $2 to $30?
Yeah, it was still messing around with a dollar. It's still like 2011.
Yeah, and then it crashed.
Finally broke a dollar. I think it went to 30, maybe something like that.
Mm-hmm. You know, I remember when it was the most recent at $600, probably
Right.
$600, and it went to 20K and then fell back down to below 3K. I think we're going to see that again. 100K totally on the table here. We're at 30K. That's the next resistance. But I think that we'll see 50K and 75K as the next real resistance. And if it breaks through those, I mean, 100K is totally on the table.
Yeah, I had this article up from 2014. I wrote this. The price was right around. I had to screenshot it because Medium deleted said I broke some rule or something. And so, of course, decentralized. So I just moved it. I screenshot it, moved it over to my website. But I didn't want to lose that because it was like $600 Bitcoin at that point. And then I took. And what reminded me of that was I was getting ready to talk to you on here, and Russell, I don't know, Akun,
I think it's a Kung.
Yeah, Akun. He is about to use the Strike app to receive $6.5 million, half of his salary for playing football for the Panthers in Bitcoin. So it's very interesting that people are starting to see that they can take some of the power back, at least monetarily. And I mean that's a lot of life, you know. A lot of freedom comes from, you know, the value that you're able to, that energy you're able to harness. I mean, that's really what gold, and I've listened to Michael Saylor talk about money as energy. I've really been enjoying that because, I mean, that's really what gold is. If you think about it, it's like or silver is just like a representation of the value that was put into getting it out, really. I mean, at the end of the day, it's something that, you know, is durable and has staying power over time and is shiny, and, you know, you can use, it has a lot of use cases. So, yeah, I think that there's like the analog world, like gold and stuff. That it's so important. You know, you never know. Look at all the things we saw this year. Look at all the things we saw that we never thought we would see. So if you don't think you need a little bit of you know, diversification in case, you know, the digital world, something happens to I think we're heading into the digital epoch. I don't think there's any disagreement between you and I on that, but, you know, it's just a good idea to have, you know, diversification. And that's not financial advice, but
A couple things. All right. So Medium, we got Medium. They took your post down. Like
they deleted, they censored my whole account.
Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and TikTok. Am I missing one?
I think you got the big ones.
These these are platforms that we should be using in a limited capacity
Right.
as a means of linking to the libraries. The library, is it .io? I don't
I
think
know
it
what
is.
you're. Yeah, I'm not on library, but I know what you're talking about. I use Hive, but I
Or
get.
Hive,
Yeah.
or Mind,
Mm-hmm.
Minds, right?
Yep.
Or Parlor, or even Jeffrey Tucker's Liberty.me, which is dead in the water, but I
I
think
haven't
it could be
even got on.
resuscitated, and other ones. So like as a space, forget Twitter. Crypto Twitter is a feedback loop of shallowness. And we should use Twitter to lure people in, but to link them away into the crypto minded social media platforms like Hive, like Library, like there's
Like
some
my
other ones.
Patreon group that I created to educate people. In all seriousness, though, yeah, I totally agree with you. We have, and I think that's how you and I met. Like me getting out there and just like trying to like sell my, my books and stuff. Like I use these platforms 100% against the, the what the state big idea that the anti-capitalist idea. I totally agree with that too. That's a good point to make.
And then as we move into this digital epoch,
Mm-hmm.
we need to also resist it in many ways. So like, I'm in Idaho now. I'm gonna become an avid fisher here over the next year. That's my New Year's resolution, is become a fisher,
Nice.
then a hunter. I mean, have you seen the price of beef jerky? You want to make an investment and diversify? Is there a beef jerky company that we can invest in?
It's a good idea.
Invest in them. We need we need real world stake. And so if you're a Bitcoin millionaire now, you know, buy a theater and put on plays and turn it into a profitable business. We need to, I think, keep a foothold in the analog world, and we need to keep it the analog world.
Right.
We need to view this march towards smart cities with great skepticism, because we see another project we cheer on without thinking through the implications whatsoever is Akon Smart City in Africa, which from the sounds of it is a panopticon without any privacy, in which the lock on your door
Mm-hmm.
can be accessed by the authorities at any time, which is marketed as a convenience. It's marketed, of course, for your
Right.
safety,
For the greater good, the public good, whatever. That's all they all.
but not even the crypto space is pushing back on that. And that's because the crypto space is selling crypto at all costs, even if that's the cost of your privacy, even if that's the cost of your security, even if that's the cost of your freedom and liberty.
That's one I can't really speak on that a ton. I don't know a ton about the Akon deal. I know it's been talked about for a long time now, so I kind of lost at what was going on. I haven't read about it, but yeah, it doesn't sound like a great deal if if that's really the agenda
That is
or what it could turn into at
what it
least.
could turn into.
Right.
It's a smart city. You can just look into what the
Right.
smart cities are, and um, there's no debate being around. There's no debate around what these smart cities should look like.
Right.
There's just, we're being told what they are, and the blockchain industry, the crypto industry, is in a unique position to be on the cutting edge, on the tip of the spear of that discussion. And instead, they're talking about Bitcoin and USD terms.
Fair enough. Last question for you. I want to ask you what you think about like retail come. I mean, or Wall Street, like the Fortune 500s and stuff coming into Bitcoin. Do you think this will be the year that happens? Because like I see that you've been posting. I think you're posting more recently about crypto on your site. I don't know. You put out a lot of articles and stuff on there. Do you think that the Amazons, Apples, uh, they're going to move their treasuries to Bitcoin this year. Could you see it happening?
To Bitcoin, I think now the Fortune 500, that's a big chunk of companies. But if we're looking at like the FANGs, for instance, I don't think we're quite there yet. They're interested in blockchain. There's an existential battle going on for cryptocurrency. And cryptocurrency does not even know it's happening. The Fortune 100 are coming into the space and they're experimenting with technologies that will take away your privacy. They will take away your security. They will take away your freedom, and they'll take away your liberty using distributed ledger technology that they're calling blockchain technology. Blockchain has been co-opted by major corporations, and the cryptocurrency industry celebrates it without analyzing what these technologies are and could be. So I'll take one example: contact tracing apps. We have a virus spreading around the globe that may have been here for more than a year at this point, if not more.
I had it last Christmas, so I totally agree with you.
And the survival rate is extremely high.
Right.
The vast majority of the people survive and don't have, as far as we can tell, any more long-lasting effects that this vaccine may or may not have. And yet we're rewriting the social contract on the back of these, in some cases, distributed ledger or, quote, blockchain-based contact tracing apps. And we have people in the space like Vinny Lingham who will sell out his fellow man for profit.
Who is this?
There's no pushback.
Who are you speaking about there at the end?
Civic Technologies is a company based out of San Francisco, I believe, out of California.
Oh, okay.
And they're working with the medical industry on a contact tracing app.
Oh, I got you. Yeah. They
claim that, because of zero knowledge proofs, you can maintain your privacy. But there's still a debate around how that might work or if it would even work.
Interesting. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I'll have to look into that more. What was I going to say? Yeah, the whole Bitcoin Wall Street move it has to happen soon. I think. I don't think we're going to watch these companies that are sitting on piles of cash willingly give up 15% or more a year. I think that's what's coming. I mean, they're not going to stop printing. We know that. So,
right now they're riding the stock market up.
Right. A lot of them are, yeah. That's true.
And they're cashing out the stock market.
But they can't sit on, we know that that's definitely going to pull back eventually. There's no new stock paradigm. We know that for certain, So they're going to they definitely want to seek refuge somehow, I think.
Yeah, they're going to do it with all the property on the planet.
And that's a good point you made earlier, too, that they could, or they probably are, buying up a lot of that property.
Think about the real estate play we saw this year. And Catherine Austin Fitz had a brilliant interview. It's on YouTube, and I think it's gone viral, in which she examined the riots throughout the United States this year from a financial perspective and from a real estate perspective. And she noted how in the cities where there were these riots, there are opportunity zones. And many of these opportunity zones were burnt down and destroyed as a part of the riots. Now, as those businesses aren't completely bailed out by the insurance industry, they'll go out of business. The landlords will be forced to sell the property. So what's an opportunity zone? It's an area where individuals can cash out of the stock market, invest into an opportunity zone without having to pay capital gains tax. So that's what we're going to see. They don't need to go into Bitcoin. They're going to buy up your hometown in your city, and they're going to turn it into a panopticon more than it already is.
Scary to think about. I had to pull this out, man, because I wrote this like 3 years ago. It's just real quick. I want to
Yeah.
share this with you. This is how I started the first book I wrote. Today, society finds itself at a very pivotal juncture in human history. There have been many epochs prior to the current technological one, but it's arguable that none have come as fast as this new technological digital epoch. The digital epoch has a binary outcome: total freedom or total enslavement. So I don't want to sound like I don't care. It's all about profits for me. Like, I've been trying to warn people about this for years. I've seen the writing on the wall all along with blockchain. It is a binary outcome. It's either, you have to make the right decisions, and this is why you and I are all about individual, self-reliance and self-knowledge and investing in your human capital. Not just your human capital will lead to more gains, and more freedom comes from the money and all that. It's all connected, but we just have to make sure we keep educating everyone and bring them, try to bring them into the right side, whether it's blockchain or, the right blockchain projects. I'm interested in freedom and privacy coins, the freedom of privacy coins, bring about, or whether it's precious metals or whether it's combination for me and you. I think that's what we like. We just have to, and then I think that also, just wrapping up here, that like education is paramount, and we know that, you and I know that, but a lot of people don't realize that. Like, I wonder what will happen when I wonder how many people will end up being homeschooled now from this. We have to look at it. We try to remain positive. Maybe there will be more alternative schooling going on. So I'm trying to remain positive.
Yeah, I think you're right. We're going to see that. If you're watching this right now, get Lolly. Go to abebooks.com, start buying books and getting Bitcoin back.
I love it. Yeah, I've got like almost 2,000 books in my house right now. So that's one thing that I want to have, like one of the largest private libraries. So I endorse that. Make sure you're out there buying and reading. So and yeah, physical books are great. A lot of people don't like them, but I think there's something about having tangible books, and that's another reason vinyl records are coming back. People like to have that sort of like they want to feel that. It's interesting.
Yeah, we can't just stare at these screens all day. We weren't made to do it.
All right.
It puts us into a hypnotic state. Before we go, I got some questions for you.
Go ahead.
I'm looking at like 4 to 6 inches of snow outside. Can you give this former Californian some tips?
Yeah, absolutely, bro. I would say, make sure you have some good snow tires. I don't know what kind of car you're driving around up there or out there, but make sure you early on. You probably haven't driven in a lot of snow, have you? Just
No, I'm watching you do videos. You're like driving in snow, and I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, I should make sure that I do those safely. I was on a road right around where I live. And it's only 25. So, but yeah, snow tires are paramount. What else can I tell you? Yeah, don't gas it around the sharp bends. Don't brake around the sharp bends. Kind of just make sure you're already slowed down. Things like that. Yeah, and maybe grab a bag of salt for your porch or your deck or whatever you got, your stoop, whatever you got to come into your house. You know how you got to come in. I don't know if you have a garage or whatever.
Yeah, I got a garage, so I got a Camry.
Nice. Well, that could be dicey. My mom just got rid of hers last year and moved up to an SUV, so it just depends. Make sure you have good snow tires.
Camry's gonna have to be a spring through fall vehicle, huh?
It might be, yeah. I have rear wheel drive. I have an old 1 Series BMW. It's a 2010. It's not real old, but it's not new. It's not a new car. I always buy used cars, and I actually drove that car through a blizzard. And it's rear wheel drive, but one time I got stuck going from Columbus, Ohio to Cincinnati when I was still living in Cincinnati. And I drove through a blizzard in that car, man. It was like, just take it slow, just, there's going to be a lot of idiots that like to pass you, but if you take it slow, be all right.
Going under a snow lockdown.
Yeah. Make sure you get some, good winter coats and stuff like that in case you do have a problem. Keep a winter coat in the trunk. Now I sound like your mother or your father. Yeah. Make sure you have something like that with you, because that, who knows, man. You could slide off the road. I've done that,
All right. I think we've got all the bases covered.
Yeah. But be safe, man. I'm glad we got to come on and have this talk. Hopefully, you and I get to do a couple more of these next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
All right. This is Justin O'Connell. For Justin O'Connell, I'm R.L. Breyer. This was episode 31 of the Various and Numerous podcast. Make sure to check out his website, goldsilverbitcoin.com. Go over there, read his articles. He's putting out a lot of good information. Listen to his podcast. He have you on as a guest on there. It's the third time him and I have talked. So if you want to look back at what we've talked about before, go for it. I'll see you later, man.